If there's a choice between buying a large, fully mature Monstera deliciosa in the store versus buying a small, developing one, then it's usually always better to choose the small one. And this doesn't just apply to Monsteras either. I've come to learn that it's nearly always best to buy small and grow out in your home rather than buy large and mature, and here's why. I know we all want to have the biggest and best plants in our homes. In fact, I was this person only a couple of years ago. We're impatient and want to have a big beautiful plant to fill a space in our home rather than wait years for it to grow into that space. The problem we have though is that plants are sensitive beings, much more sensitive than folks give them credit for. Change their environment and they tend to throw a hissy fit. You'd have probably experienced this yourself. You buy a nice big plant from your local garden centre or big box store, bring it home and proudly display it in your home, only to find that it starts to deteriorate over the next few months. Let me know in the comments if this has happened to you. The larger the plant is, the grumpier it is basically. Plants are like us really. The older we get, the more resistant to change we become. We get more and more settled in our homes the longer we stay in them, and the idea of moving becomes incredibly unappealing. You can think of large mature plants as grumpy granddads. They'd much rather stay where they are than be moved. I'm exaggerating a little bit of course, but you get the idea. A mature plant will have a harder time adapting to a new environment than a younger one. They have their light, water and humidity needs that they fine-tuned over the years, and disrupting this can lead to a mutiny on your hands. Think about it. They'll have been lovingly cared for by their grower in a nice, warm, bright environment that is absolutely perfect for their needs. They grow up big and strong, loving the environment they've grown up in, and then the next day they get thrust into a completely new environment in your home that is maybe not so bright or humid. It's this sudden change that can result in browning leaf tips, wilting stems, or yellowing foliage. Let's compare this to a youngling. It's spent a far shorter time in the grower's perfect environment, so it isn't drunk on the bright light and high humidity the larger plant has become accustomed to. It's not become settled. If you buy the plant small, the acclimatizing will happen in your home rather than the growers. It will develop large leaves and stems over time and grow into an adult in your home surroundings and will become accustomed to them. Eventually, this leads to a much more robust and healthy plant that is perfect for your home, provided you give it the right care. This is none more so apparent than with calatheas. Calatheas are the nemesis of the plant world, and long-time viewers of the channel will know all about my battle with the Calathea zebrina. There is though a common misconception out there that calatheas absolutely need high humidity for them to thrive and not develop those crispy brown edges. The problem is more to do with consistency. I've done a video all about this, but keeping a mature calathea in a spot that gets inconsistent humidity will result in damaged leaf tissue. It doesn't like it when humidity drops and rises regularly. They also don't like the change of going from a humid environment in the garden centre to an inevitably less humid home. This is even more apparent on large calatheas. Buy a small calathea and they're less prone to this problem because they're not so used to the humid atmosphere. They're better equipped to adjust more quickly to your home. A few years ago, I bought a large, beautiful Calathea macoyana. It was one of the first plants that I bought. I was sucked in by the big, beautiful leaves that were blemish-free, as I'm sure most of you would have been at some point. I brought it home and, well, you probably know the story. Those big, beautiful leaves soon turned crispy brown. I was pulling my hair out, like you probably do with this plant, not knowing why this was happening. Well, a few years later, I decided to try again with a much smaller baby version, and so far it's doing much better. I get far less crispy brown edges, and this is because I brought it into my home as a baby, so it became used to my environment. To further demonstrate my point, have a think about the plants you've propagated. How is the propagated plant doing compared to the mother plant? I've personally found that the propagated plant is usually much healthier than the mother plant. I have a Monstera adansonii that I've propagated. The mother plant lives in my dining room and the youngster lives in my bedroom. They both pretty much get the same care and the same light intensity, but the mother plant regularly develops brown leaves and looks straggly, whereas the propagated plant looks 10 times better with beautiful green foliage. It's my belief that this is because the propagated plant was born in the environment it lives in, so it's much happier than its mother. I see this with my Ficus elastica too. I've propagated this plant many times because I love it so much, and all of the offspring look better than their mother. She's developing brown leaves that I'm just not seeing on the kids. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced the same with any of your propagated plants. I know buying baby plants is time consuming and does require a great deal of patience to wait for them to grow big and lush, particularly if you have a space that you want to fill in. The truth is though that it's also much more rewarding watching your babies turn into adults. For me, this is what houseplant care is all about. Watching plants change and develop through the care that we give them. Get it right and they turn into the adults that we can be proud of. I sometimes get some heat in the comments when I call plant owners plant parents, but we are nurturing living creatures after all. Buying a plant that is already fully mature just doesn't have the same appeal to me. This is why I don't really have very large plants in my collection. I buy small, and because I live in Sheffield, it takes a long time for them to grow big. It just wouldn't be the same experience buying a collection of already mature plants. The other reason I buy small, of course, is because I'm pretty tight. I don't like spending lots of money on a single plant. I like to make sure I'm getting as much bang for my buck as possible. The thing you are paying for when buying a large plant, the reason it costs more, is the grower's time nurturing that plant. Time is money and all that. Sure, there is value in selling a larger plant for the shop, but the cost of keeping that plant alive for months or years is also factored into the price. You can make big savings by taking on that task yourself, and you're also paying for damages. A grower will grow thousands of plants to a mature size, and inevitably a percentage of those plants won't make it. They'll have invested time, compost, fertilizer and other bits and pieces into them, and to recoup those losses, the costs are added onto the price of the plants that they end up selling. Buying small avoids this. It can also be heartbreaking to spend up to £100 on a large philodendron only to watch it slowly decline in your home. Sometimes it's nothing you've done wrong. Often it's just a plant having a hard time adapting to its new home. Buying small allows you to experiment and see what plants are suitable for your home without spending a fortune. There will be some plants that just do not like something about your home, and you'll often not know what it is. String of something such as string of hearts, string of pearls or string of heartbreak is that plant for me. Whenever I buy a string of something, it ends up dying within a few months. I must not have the right light for them. I made the mistake of buying an established peperomia pepper shot 2 years ago for about £30. I brought it home and it slowly turned crispy at the top, which is what normally happens to all the string of somethings I bring home, so I eventually chucked it out. Losing a small peperomia pepper shot wouldn't have resulted in such a large sunk cost. And then we have pests. It's much easier for a colony of pests to hide under the canopy of the leaves of a larger plant than a smaller one. It's much easier to spot spider mite webbing or mealybug white blobs on a baby plant than wading through the foliage of a mature one. My parents brought home a large areca palm from IKEA last year, and a few weeks later they noticed scale insects on the leaves. It's much easier to miss this pest on a large plant than a small one, so they've now got an annoying problem to deal with. Speaking of pests, one of the best ways of protecting your plants from pests is to use a simple solution of dish soap mixed with water in a spray bottle. The ingredients in the dish soap are perfect for suffocating and killing unwanted visitors on your plants. This method of pest prevention has become so popular because of how effective it is, as well as how cheap it is compared to insecticides. The thing is though that you should probably go against the grain and not use it, and in this video here I explain why, so click on the link so you don't miss out.